Hello, and welcome to the Disney Storybook Advent Calendar. Today is day 17. Remember to like and subscribe so you always know when the next video is out. For day 17, we have Disney's Dumbo. One special day, Mr. Stork flew down and landed on the roof of a train car. He had a delivery for one lucky elephant. Mr. Stork saw several elephant trucks waving at him. He hopped onto their train car and asked, "Which one of you ladies is expecting a little bundle of joy?" "Right over here," the elephants answered, pointing to Mrs. Jumbo. Everyone cooed when the bundle fell open. "Achoo!" the little elephant sneezed. His ears, which had been neatly tucked behind his head, flopped open. They were enormous. "Why, with those ears, you should call him Dumbo," one of them said, laughing. The elephant's teasing made Mrs. Jumbo angry. Turning her back on the others, she picked up her baby, carried him to a corner of the train car, and lay down beside him. She didn't care if her baby's ears were big. She thought he was beautiful just the way he was. Cuddling him in her trunk, she gently rocked him to sleep. The next day, the circus had arrived in a new town. The circus barker called to the gathering crowd, "Hurry, hurry, hurry! Step right up and get your tickets!" Inside the elephant tent, Mrs. Jumbo was quietly bathing Dumbo when a bunch of rowdy boys ran in. They laughed and jeered at Dumbo, then pulled his ears. Mrs. Jumbo wanted to protect her baby, so she picked up a bale of straw and threw it at the boys to scare them away. "Help! Mad elephant!" they screamed. The trainers quickly came, dragged Mrs. Jumbo away, and locked her up on her own, with chains tied to each of her 4 legs. Dumbo, crying for his mother, thought he had no friends in the world. But someone did want to be his friend, a little mouse named Timothy. When Timothy saw how the other elephants treated Dumbo, it made him mad. "Look at that poor little fella," he said. "Everyone's making fun of his ears. What's the matter with them? I think they're cute." The mouse went up to Dumbo. "I'm Timothy Mouse, and I'm your friend, Dumbo. I have a plan to help you free your mother. All we gotta do is make you a big star. But first, we need a really colossal act, and I'm just the fella to think of one. Leave everything to me." At that, Dumbo forgot all about being scared. The next day, Timothy had put his plan to make Dumbo a star into action. The ringmaster blew his whistle, and Dumbo and Timothy watched as the elephant pyramid rose higher and higher until it almost reached the top of the tent. It was soon Dumbo's turn. All he had to do was reach the very top of the pyramid. But before Dumbo could make his leap, his ears became untied, and he stumbled over them right into the elephant pyramid. The elephants began to fall. Trumpeting and bellowing, they tumbled down, crashing into beams, platforms, and bleachers. They smacked into walls and pulled down wires and ropes. Finally, they crashed into the center tent pole. With a huge groan, the tent collapsed. Dumbo was left sitting alone and sad in the middle of the ruins. The very next show, the clowns painted Dumbo's face and dressed him as a baby. They put him on a tiny platform high up in the building, surrounded by crackling fake flames. Dumbo stood shaking with fear, while far below, clowns dressed as firemen ran around squirting hoses at each other. The fireman held up thin safety net, and closing his eyes, Dumbo jumped. Dumbo fell through the net and landed in a tub of wet plaster. The audience roared with laughter. As the clowns bowed to the cheering crowds, they paid no attention to Dumbo, who crept from the tent, feeling hurt, humiliated, and miserable. After the show, the clowns celebrated in their tent. "Cheer up, Dumbo," Timothy said as he scrubbed his friend's sad little face. "I found out where they're keeping your mother. I'm going to take you to see her later tonight." A hopeful smile crossed Dumbo's face. Things wouldn't seem so bad if he could just see his mother. Later that night, Timothy took Dumbo to the wagon where his mother was chained. "Mrs. Jumbo, someone to see you," Timothy called. Mrs. Jumbo put her trunk through the bars of the window and stroked Dumbo's head. She wrapped her trunk around Dumbo and rocked him lovingly. At last it was time to leave. Tearfully, Dumbo and his mother waved goodbye. As Timothy and Dumbo returned to the clown's tent, they heard the clowns talking about their act. "Let's make the house taller tomorrow," shouted a clown. Dumbo felt miserable. He didn't like being laughed at during the clown's act, and a taller house just sounded scary. All Dumbo wanted to be was with his mother. He started to cry. Then his eyes slowly began to droop. Finally, he fell asleep and started to have the strangest dream. In the dream were Timothy and Dumbo. The little elephant was blowing bubbles from his trunk. Soon the bubbles looked just like elephants that danced and flew. The next morning, Timothy tried to convince Dumbo that he could fly. He gave his friend a bird feather, saying it was magical and would help Dumbo. With the help of the magic feather, Dumbo would try to fly at his next performance. Soon it was time for Dumbo to perform again, only this time the young elephant wasn't afraid. He stood on the platform with Timothy perched on his trunk. He clutched the magic feather in his trunk and waited for his cue. "Come on! Jump! Jump!" cried the clowns. Dumbo jumped from the platform, but as they flew through the air, the wind tore the feather from Dumbo's trunk. Dumbo froze. Without his magic feather, he didn't believe he could fly. He and Timothy hurtled toward the ground. "Open your ears and fly!" pleaded Timothy. "The magic feather was just a gag. You can fly all by yourself." Dumbo heard Timothy's words and believed them, and what's more, he believed in himself. At the last second, Dumbo spread his ears and began to soar up and up. The astonished audience went wild as Dumbo chased the clowns around the ring. The crowd roared as he dove at the ringmaster. They applauded thunderously as Dumbo did loop-the-loops, rolls, and spins in the air. Dumbo was famous. All the newspapers printed pictures of him and Timothy. Most importantly, Mrs. Jumbo was let out of her cage because the ringmaster was so pleased with Dumbo. Dumbo thought it was great fun being a star, but what he loved best of all was being with his mother once again. Dumbo is the cutest. Thank you for joining us for Disney Storybook Advent Calendar Day 17. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified when the next story comes out, and we can see you on Day 18. See you then.